season. The good news is it won't be the last game for the Cincinnati Reds. The regular season finale here at Great American Ballpark. The Reds and the Milwaukee Brewers. Cincinnati looking to try and generate some more momentum to take into the 2010 postseason and add to some of their stats as well. Thanks for joining us here at Great American Ballpark. Great to be back with you. Paul Keels and former Reds pitcher Chris Welsh. And really, it's all about generating a little momentum going into the postseason party now, Chris.
Well, you're exactly right, Paul. Of course, the Reds don't know who they're going to play. They want to put another win on the board. They got to the milestone of 90 wins yesterday with the win on Saturday. And Dusty Baker wants to put up another win, obviously. Get a little momentum going. Hey, he's got his A team in there today, so that says something about the lineup. He will run Aaron Harang out in this final game here at Great American Ballpark. And you got to figure for Aaron Harang, it's somewhat of a bittersweet start for him because he's a guy who was the opening day starter, so I guess it's appropriate that he starts the last ball game of the year, at least the regular season game at Great American Ballpark. But overall, kind of a weird year for Aaron Harang. You're an opening day starter, but you may not even be on the postseason roster.
You know, the division was clinched on Tuesday, but you can tell from even the fans being here today that everybody's kind of getting excited for what lies ahead.
Oh, they're excited, all right. There's no question about it. There's Reds gear flying off the shelves. You didn't realize that your T-shirts would be no good in October. You better put some woolies on, some hoodies on. And I think there's a lot of people out there sporting their favorite Red stuff today.
Yeah. We'll tell you more about Aaron Harang, today's starter, when we continue here from Great America.
Be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Cincinnati Reds.
Today's Reds broadcast on Fox Sports Ohio is presented in beautiful high definition courtesy of H.H. Gregg. And welcome back Sunday afternoon at Great America. Now time to take a look at today's weather forecast.
Hey, Reds fans, we close the season off with a cloudy, cool, and windy day. We will see temperatures around the first pitch in the lower 50s. We won't get out of the 50s, and we'll see maybe just a few occasional showers.
And Aaron Harang is given the ball on the mound today, Chris.
Well, he was acquired by the Reds back in 2003, Aaron Harang was. That was when Jim Bowden was no longer general manager, and the reins went to Brad Coleman and Leland Maddox. They made a deal with the Oakland A's, and since that time, Aaron Harang had one heck of a run, especially in years 2006 and 2007. He was among the league leaders in strikeouts, had a low earned run average. He was 5 times an opening day starter for the Reds. But the last couple of years, he's really gone off. He's 20 games under 500, his earned run average north of 4.5, and he's not nearly the Aaron Harang that we were hoping to see this year in 2010. A good guy, a stand-up guy. Somewhere along the lines, Aaron Harang lost his slider, and I think that's the bottom line on what happened to the big number 39. You don't know if he'll be in a Reds uniform next year or not. You do know one thing, the guy works as hard as anybody on this ball club, and he has given as much back to this community in Cincinnati as anybody I've ever seen in a Reds uniform. So we really wish Aaron Harang a lot of luck here this afternoon.
We certainly do. Reds and the Brewers finish up the season. The Reds rounding third and headed to the postseason here in 2010. Is there. By Ford F-Series trucks, the best-selling trucks 33 straight years. By Just for Men, for mustache and beard, keep your edge. And by Skyline Chili, whenever you're feeling good and hungry, it's Skyline time. A little dreary day here at Great American, but the Reds and the Brewers will finish up the regular season. There's a glimpse of Aaron Harang, who gets the start on the mound this afternoon to wind up the regular campaign. We talked at great length about Aaron Harang. Now the Cincinnati Bell lineups that we will see today. The Milwaukee Brewers in their batting order for Ken Maka.
Well, Ken Maka is going to run out his A team one more time. They finish the season right now with pretty much of a flurry. And Ricky Weeks, Corey Hart, Ryan Braun, Prince Fielder, Casey McGee, who went over the 100 RBI mark this week, had big 3-run home run yesterday. Lorenzo Cain in center field. Alcides Escobar, very slick fielding shortstop. And George Gutaris behind the plate will catch Randy Wolf, who is finishing out the first year of a 3-year contract. This left-hander has faced the Reds a whole lot. We'll see what that lineup has to do against Aaron Harang this afternoon.
And Randy Wolf is finishing 2010 on a little bit of a roll here.
Well, he got off to a very bad start. They signed him in the offseason to be a big innings eater, and he was not that this year, really, until the second half. So he's trying to finish strong. The Brewers, I'll tell you what, they're not playing out the string like it is just playing out the string. They're hustling hard. They're going from first to third. You can see that they're playing their A team. You know, Ken Maka is trying to make a statement with his ball club that says, you know what, people pay good money to come and see you play. They want to see a big league ball team, and they want to see you play like big leaguers, and they have done that right towards the end. Of course, the future of Ken Maka is very uncertain right now in Milwaukee. There's been a vote of confidence by the team owner for the team general manager, Doug Melvin, but there's not been much said about Ken Maka at all. Speculation is that he might not be the manager of the Brewers next year.
Well, the Cincinnati Reds are taking the field this afternoon, and now the four defense for how the Reds are aligned. And when you look at how they're set out there, and in the next half inning we'll see the batting order, this is a guess as to what the postseason look might be for the Reds.
I imagine that Dusty Baker will go just like this. And I'm not sure how many innings all of these everyday players that you're going to play today. But this is your A lineup. There's no question about it. And I think if you had to do it all over again, this would be the lineup you'd have an opening day and probably stay there the rest of the year if it had been according to plan. And that is with, of course, Aaron Harang on the mound. Although Aaron Harang was the opening day starter, he really scuffled so far this year. He had a number of different types of injuries that sidelined him. He kept trying to battle back. Overall in his career, he is now 6 games under 500, believe it or not. But he's been a Reds opening starter 5 years in a row. So you hope that he's able to finish it off in fine, classy Aaron Harang style, because that would be very fitting for this longest tenured of all Reds.
Yes, he certainly has been a guy that has logged a lot of innings and has really pitched some very good baseball at times when this team overall wasn't playing very good baseball.
You know, and it's tough. Sometimes, you know, you have the weight of the world on you. And really, from a pitching standpoint, Aaron Harang is a fly ball pitcher. And I'm not trying to make any excuses for what he has done the last couple of years, because we all liked his performance better when he was winning 16 games a year. But the fact is, when you're a fly ball pitcher in this ballpark and your strikeouts per 9 innings begin to go down, you're going to have contact made and the ball's going to go in the air. And I can tell you that Aaron Harang gave up a number of home runs this year that were little fence squeakers, right over the fence into the first row, balls that in the heat of the summer really jumps out of here. And I think that he would be better off probably in a ballpark that plays a little bit more and fairer to fly ball pitchers. So we've got that kind of a day today where it's cold. The wind's not really a factor at all as far as helping the ball. So this is going to play more like a normal ballpark here this afternoon because of the cool weather than it was a very tiny ballpark that it played most of the summer.
Aaron Harang last pitched last week in Milwaukee. That game on the 22nd of September. No decision in the Reds' 13-1 loss. Worked just a couple of innings, but was hit on the outside of his right ankle by today's leadoff batter, Ricky Weeks. And Weeks will climb in. Harang starts the day by delivering Weeks strike one. So a rather nippy day here. 51 degrees at Great American Ballpark. There's a look at what's been a very good 2010 for Ricky Weeks, the Brewers' second baseman, and Harang quickly gets ahead of him, 0-2. Weeks to be followed by Corey Hart and Ben Braun. One hit in 4 at-bats yesterday for the Milwaukee second baseman. Harang Redding with an 0-2 pitch, and he gets Ricky Weeks 1 out.
A nice easy motion, the ball jumps on you. That is classic Aaron Harang right there. Weeks may be thinking about a breaking ball on an 0-2 pitch, but Harang decided to put him away with 3 heaters.
Corey Hart, the Brewers' right fielder.
Speaking of heaters, wouldn't be a bad idea to have one up here in the booth today.
Oh, come on. It's football season.
No, it's postseason baseball time.
You're right. I stand corrected.
And football season, too. Boy, a lot going on, isn't there?
There sure
in the world
is.
of sports. Between all the college teams that are playing, you saw Ohio State hang on to beat Illinois yesterday. The Ryder Cup across the ocean. Professional football and postseason baseball, but in Cincinnati, it's all about postseason baseball and the Reds.
Corey Hart with a single to get on base. The first knock of the afternoon for the Brewers.
Now, they shaded a Corey Hart a little bit up the middle because over the last few days he's really made an effort to hit the ball the other way. That time he pulls the ball and finds himself in a hole.
So 1 out and 1 on for Ryan Braun, the Milwaukee left fielder, in the midst of another outstanding season. How about that catch he made the other week ago in San Francisco when he took a home run away from somebody?
We've seen some splendid defensive plays.
Pushes this one to right. Jay Bruce in position. 2 are gone.
I'll tell you, that's a ball, Paul, that if you hit that ball in July when it's 95 degrees here, that ball goes about 5 rows deep. And that's the difference between this ballpark when it plays on a cool day like today where the ball's not carrying all that well, and a really hot summer day when the ball just seems to jump.
Yeah, we saw some of that here in the warm months. Prince Fielder, hitless in his last 11. Be the 2-out batter for Milwaukee with Hart on at first base.
There's a lot of speculation about Prince Fielder. He's not a free agent now after the season, but it will be after the 2011 season. So speculation is, well, rather than just let him run out the string here as a Brewer, will the Brewers decide to trade him and try to pick up a top of the rotation type pitcher? The numbers that he has put on the board since him breaking into the major league, just astounding. I mean, real run production numbers. Home runs, runs batted in, runs scored, times on base. Second year in a row he has eclipsed the 100 base on balls mark.
And he's one of those guys that seems to affect the game from the on-deck circle or when he's preparing to come to the on-deck.
I'll tell you, he plays hard. He plays every day. I mean, you look at his years, year after year, and I mean, he's always in the 150s when it comes to the number of games played.
Yet to scratch something across, obviously, in this series here. 1-2 the count with a Hart on at first and 2 down, top of the first. And Aaron Harang hits Fielder. A runner left stranded. No score after 1.5 innings.
Dusty Baker going with his A team. Take a look at this. This might just be the way that he decides to open up the postseason. Brandon Phillips at top of the lineup. Orlando Cabrera number 2. Joey Votto in the number 3 spot, obviously, followed by Roland, then Gomes, and Jay Bruce, who is on a tear. Drew Stubbs drops down to number 7. Ramon Hernandez, who's catching Aaron Harang today, will bat 8th, and Aaron Harang number 9, and they will face a left-hander in Randy Wolf. Wolf starting his 34th game of the year. And he started off in a very poor fashion, but he's come on very strong here towards the end, giving the Brewers more than 200 innings. And that's really what they need him for. Be an innings eater, a leader of the staff. And he'll be back for at least 2 more years as a Brewer.
Brandon Phillips flies this one to Corey Hart in right field for the first out. Time to look at the 4 defense for Ken Maka's Milwaukee Brewers, how they're deployed around the infield and outfield. Lorenzo Cain, a young man the Brewers people rant and rave about as far as the possible future contributions. And certainly Escobar, a young man at shorts that has made a very good impression on the management of that team. Orlando Cabrera will be the one-out batter for the Reds facing Randy Wolf. Orlando a base hit yesterday, as well as a run driven in. So on one pitch, now it's 0-2 to Cabrera. And here's a guy that will go into the postseason, Chris, with postseason experience.
Well, that's one reason why Walt Jocketty went out and got the guys he selected to fill out this roster. Orlando Cabrera, a very important piece of that, and his leadership.
And he leads with a base hit down the line into right field. He snuck that one right past fielder. Past the bat. There's a look at what Orlando has done in the postseason. Appeared with the Twins last year.
You look at postseason career numbers for most batters, and they're going to be lower than their normal regular season batting averages because you never see a number 5 starter. You rarely see a middle reliever. You never see a long reliever who's just out there to suck up some innings. I mean, these are low-scoring ball games, and that's why you'll see low batting averages.
Joey Votto standing in. The day off yesterday, a base hit on Friday. How can we continue to find different ways to say the same great things we've been saying about him all year?
You just hope that he can continue into the postseason what he has set for himself as far as goals in the regular season. I had an interesting conversation before the game today with Joe Morgan, who was down at the Reds clubhouse. He'll be following the club throughout the postseason, of course, until they get to the World Series. Then he'll be working along with the Fox crew on, or with the TV crew on that. But he was mentioning to me that, Joe Morgan's a 2-time MVP. He says, after the first year you get your MVP, and he's not given that Joey Votto is going to get it, but let's assume he's in the running, that the league makes it tougher and tougher on you every year. That they're just not going to allow you to do the things that you did here in 2010. They're going to pitch around you more. They're going to just pitch to the guy behind you more and more. This year, Joey Votto, he didn't sneak up on the league, but he certainly took it by its tail and started swinging it around because he's hit pitches the other way more, I think, than anybody else in this league for home runs. And that's what makes him so dangerous and such a tough guy from a pitching standpoint to try to adjust to. You can make him look so bad on one swing and see him jack the ball out of the ballpark on the next.
And there's a number of those situations that occurred late games, clutch situations, long at-bats, fouling off pitches where while the pitchers were trying to adjust to him, he was adjusting to the pitchers and putting himself in a positive position.
Yeah, some hitters never really adjust up there. They're going up there to try to hit the ball as hard as they can. They're going to swing big and swing fast and through every count, no matter whether it's 3-0 count or an 0-2 count. Joey Votto really goes up there with a plan and changes that plan as the count changes.
Cabrera on the move. Votto to left center. Cabrera had to hold for a moment at second. He's going to be waved home as Joey Votto has driven him in with a 2-bagger. Reds up 1-0.
Well, going the other way, how about that? Randy Wolf sidearms the ball, trying to fool Joey Votto from a different release point, trying to pick that outside corner. And Votto says, fine, you going outside with it? I'll go outside with it too. And he splits the seam left to center field, and he finds a hole all the way to the wall. Orlando Cabrera, who initially went sliding into second base, comes around to score. And Votto, another run batted in.
Number 113 on the campaign. So the Reds strike first and get a 1-0 lead on the Brewers and Randy Wolf. Scott Rowland stands in with 1 out, and another guy who brings a wealth of postseason experience to the party. Rowland given the day off yesterday, 0 for 2 on Friday against Milwaukee. And that one where Kane has it, it'll allow Votto a chance to advance on to third base with 2 gone.
Another swing on another shot of the swing of Joey Votto, hitting this ball to left center field. He just keeps his head down right on that. I mean, that is a textbook swing on how to hit the ball with power going the other way. A firm front side where he kind of locks his left knee, or his right knee, that is, and plays off the firmness when he lands that foot down, and he gets that foot down nice and firm and then just drives the bat through the zone. That's about as an efficient swing as you will find.
And something that's also been another positive trend for the Reds this season and a major area of improvement is their base running. Seeing Votto move up on that fly ball, seeing what Cabrera did, getting all the way around to score.
Well, they weren't the best base running team in the league last year nor the year before. But I think what you see, Paul, is a concerted effort on the part of the coaches, Billy Hatcher and Mark Berry at third base, to get these guys to take an aggressive posture on the base paths, make the other team make the plays. And they've run into some outs. There's no question about that. They've had some base running blunders out there that looks like they've become too zealous. But the bottom line is that more often than not, they put the pressure on the defense, and the defense that doesn't come up with a great play. You got to remember, nowadays teams do not take infield practice anymore. So rarely do outfielders practice throwing the bases. And I think Reds took advantage of that kind of newfound philosophy, and they've exploited it. They're the best team in the National League going from first to third, one of the best going from second to home.
Here's what Johnny Gomes has done with RBI opportunities. Ricky Weeks can't get to that. And there is an RBI opportunity delivered for Johnny Gomes as Votto comes in. 2-0 Reds.
Well, at the end of the year, they don't ask you how you did it. They ask you how many you did. And I'm talking about runs batted in. And Johnny Gomes picks another one up. Third base, runners in scoring position with 2 outs. Man, oh man, he has been big.
His 86th RBI, continuing a career high in that department. And up steps another guy who is finishing the regular season strong. Jay Bruce went deep twice yesterday. Now, not having been here yesterday, tell me about that situation.
Well, Jay Bruce has really kind of changed his batting approach here at midseason. And he's kind of gone away from the direction of trying to hit the ball the other way, staying inside the ball. And he's really pulling everything. And it's worked for him.
Like that. Gomes will hold at second. He had a notion to try and speed on to third. So Jay Bruce keeps the inning going with a base hit.
If you mark Jay Bruce's strike zone and figure out where the hot spot is, he likes it out here somewhere. And when you get that ball up and on the outer part of the plate, he'll hit that ball very hard. This one stays on the inner part of the plate on him, and he's able to get the sweet part of the bat on it and find the hole between first and second. At 23 years old, you're just figuring he and Drew Stubbs are just simply going to get better and better every year.
Speaking of, Stubbs flies this one to right. Where Corey Hart's in position, but a productive inning for the Reds. 2 across, and it's a 2-0 Cincinnati lead. It's injuries. Call 1-800-ELK-OHIO. And this is what everybody is trying to figure out, whom the Reds will be playing in the National League Divisional Series. There's a little bit of an explanation of what it will be. And a reminder that Reds Live postgame will be occurring here at FS Ohio after every Reds postseason game.
And we circle that word possible.
Oh.
Because right now, anything's possible almost.
Isn't that the truth? Casey McGee to lead off the top of the second for the Brewers. The Reds with a 2-0 lead.
It was strange that going into the weekend, you thought, well, the Giants really had the ups on the Padres. All they needed was one win, but they could conceivably finish out the season losing 4 ball games in a row and then end up still in the playoffs if they win that play-in game that they would have to play on Tuesday.
Yes, there is a situation where there could be a play-in game, playoff game, play-in game, however you want to look at it, as Harang works to McGee both Monday and Tuesday.
And it does affect the Reds because until the Reds figure out who the wild card team is, they can't set their flight plan to go, to Philadelphia. Maybe to the West Coast. Who knows? They could be sitting out at the end of that runway number 3 waiting for directions to fly, east, south, or west.
Or be at one place and have to go to another, which certainly you would like to avoid if you're Dusty Baker and the Redlegs. 2-2 on the Milwaukee third baseman, McGee. And there's also a situation where there could be a pair of locker rooms celebrating.
That would be in San Francisco this afternoon, right?
Mm-hmm. Depending on what happens with the Atlanta Braves. McGee with a fly that Jay Bruce has for the opening out of the second inning. Hold your special events this holiday season at Great American Ballpark and let the Cincinnati Reds help create major league memories that will last a lifetime. Call the Red Special Events Department to make your holiday plans now at 513-765-7065. We're talking about holidays already? Well, I guess that tells us where we are. Lorenzo Cain, the batter for Milwaukee.
Well, if you're a baseball fan, you want your winter that is, to be as short as possible. So if you play right through the end of the World Series, it can take you right into November, and then before you know it, it's time to go to Goodyear.
And that's the truth. Cain coming off a 4-hit baseball game yesterday. Finds himself in a 2-strike hole against Aaron Harang. This is a guy the Milwaukee people like a lot. Except for when he strikes out. 2 down.
Well, Aaron Harang is showing remarkable command of his fastball for a guy that has hardly pitched here in the last month. He runs that one, the 2-seamer, down and into Lorenzo Cain and picks up his 3rd strikeout.
Chris, a lot of people when they talk about Aaron Harang and want to figure things out, I don't know that we've ever discussed it ourselves before, but that extra inning game a couple of years ago in San Diego, he came out and logged a bunch of relief. That's a spot that everybody seems to want to target. You buy into anything like that?
Initially I did, and I think from a temporary standpoint in that year, yes, but you're a couple of years removed from that now. I mean, you're a couple of spring trainings removed from that. And there's no reason to think that has anything to do with what his problems have been here in 2010. I really think that it's a combination of things. He's had a couple of injuries that, they haven't made a lot of publicity about. He's had some back issues that have kept him from being really healthy. But the overall issue is that he used to have a slider that would really be a biting slider. And you could almost tell the hitter it was coming, and you'd have a hard time hitting it. And somehow that began into kind of becoming more of a rolling pitch with not a lot of snap on it. And those are the kind of breaking balls that hitters just feast on. And I'm not sure if it's arm speed or his release or how he follows through on it, or whether there's a back issue that's kept him from getting there. But we've not seen that good breaking ball out of Aaron Harang that we were so used to seeing back in 2006 and 2007.
Well, Alcides Escobar gets the first walk Harang has given up, and there's a look at some of the highlights of what he has done since he came to the Reds.
A lot of people howled when they made that trade July 20th, 2003. They sent Jose Guillen, who at that time was the Reds' best offensive player, to Oakland. Of course, Guillen now playing for the San Francisco Giants, but Aaron is 6th all-time on the Reds list in strikeouts. 5 times he's been the opening day starter.
Do you think it was because of how well Guillen was playing that had everybody howling at first?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We didn't know anything about Aaron Harang. He was a fringe major leaguer at that time, and he was the cornerstone of the rotation for the next few years.
George Gutierrez standing in with 2 out and 1 on for the Brewers, the Milwaukee catcher. And certainly 2006, Aaron Harang had numbers that in a lot of cases would have won somebody a Cy Young, but didn't for Aaron Harang. He's ahead in the count to Gutierrez. Reds with 2 in the bottom of the first inning to get the 2-0 advantage. Led the league in strikeouts and in wins in 2006.
It was the same year that he also led the league in strikeouts. I think the first time that has been done in the National League, where you lead in wins and strikeouts in the same year.
And as you mentioned in the very beginning of the day here, Chris, he is a guy that really has just, people have taken to him because of his good nature, for the way he's ensconced himself in the community, his charitable acts. One and 2. Backhander by Rowland. Takes care of the Brewers. 2-0. Reds with a lead.
Too long a period of time for the next time he pitched if he was further down in the rotation. And, his stats actually against left-handers are better than right-handers. And with that changeup and his fastball and the fact that, he's, other than Bronson, he's probably had the most experience playoff-wise, not here in the States, but anybody who's been in winter ball in Dominican, there's probably even more pressure there, because people are gambling and acting crazy, and it's a big deal. And so we thought about all these variables and all these factors, and Bronson second, a softer thrower in between 2 hard throwers, Johnny Cueto third, and the problem that we have, which is a good problem, is that, they're all young and they're all good and they're all throwing the ball well. And the guys that are probably the least experienced that would have been off the longest, was Homer and Woody, that's available in the bullpen early in the series, still available if the other guys don't perform well in game 4 and 5 if necessary, or even the next series. But anytime you got a 5-man rotation and you're playing best 3 out of 5, somebody's gonna, get left out.
And as Dusty said, it's a nice problem for the Reds to have.
Well, the Reds don't have, unlike the Philadelphia Phillies, 3 clear aces of staff like they do in Philadelphia. And no matter who he chooses out of the 5 that are in the Reds rotation, there's always going to be some people to say, well, you should have chosen this guy, or why didn't you put this guy in there? And, you know, it wasn't Dusty Baker's decision alone. I'm sure he went to Brian Price and talked it over with his coaching staff, talked to Walt Jocketty and some of the baseball people. And it wasn't like he woke up one day and said, hey, I think I'm going to do it this way. It was a long and deliberate process of decision-making. And, you know, you don't know until you run him out there whether it was a good one or a bad one.
Hernandez makes the first out of the inning. Aaron Harang standing in. Of course, it came out last night that Volquez was going to be the guy given the start for the first playoff game. He would have normally started today, and you heard Dusty Baker explain with Arroyo in the middle, it's kind of a change of pace between pitchers 2 and 3. Travis Wood is the one, I guess, probably, Chris, that's going to have everybody scratching their head just a little.
Well, I guess so. And you know, you go back to the one game that Travis Wood pitched against the Philadelphia Phillies. That is if the Reds play the Phillies. You know, right before the All-Star break, he nearly spun a perfect game against them. So, you know, could he do that again? Very doubtful. Either way you cut it, though, you're going to have your pitchers on top of their game, because you assume that when you play the Phillies, that their pitchers, whether it's Halladay or Hamels or Roy Oswalt in between, they're going to be on their game. And it's going to be a low-scoring game where your defense is of the most important. Little things are very important. And I'm sure that Travis Wood, who is sitting on your right, hopes that you know, he's one of those guys that gets a chance to participate in the postseason.
And Dusty Baker was asked about that performance on that Saturday night back in July in Philadelphia, as Brandon Phillips will stand in with 2 outs. And you know, he mentioned that it was the first time the Phillies had ever seen Travis Wood. Mentioned they were playing out Placido Polanco and Chase Utley. They were not in that lineup. Those all minor factors attached to the whole deal.
And you won't have anywhere near the electricity in the stands, the hype, the media hype playing up to it. You know, you're really not sure what guys on your club who have never been there before are going to let those outside distractions take them away from their focus on baseball. And I think Dusty makes a very good point about Edinson Volquez in postseason in winter ball. Now, if you, like he says, if you've never been to winter ball, never been to postseason down there, you don't realize how crazy it really is, and how fans live and die by every game down there and every pitch. So I'm sure that having Edinson Volquez been in that situation before, that's as close as you can get to big league playoff time.
2-2 to Brandon Phillips from Randy Wolf. Volquez, out of the 3 guys you're talking about, has had the less wear and tear on his arm this year.
And he's been a former All-Star, so he's a guy with a, you know, should be fresh, but also has been around long enough to have pitched in some big games.
The Reds with RBIs from Votto and Gomes to have gotten this 2-0 lead. They came at the bottom of the first inning. Brandon Phillips here in the bottom of the second. Punches this one to right. Corey Hart's got it. 2-0. Reds ahead of the Brewers. will win this beautiful new Tundra on display at Great American Ballpark. Register for your chance to win at an upcoming game by seeing your Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky Toyota dealers. Nice looking ride out there. Chris Valaika has taken over for Brandon Phillips now at second base as Brandon's day comes to an end. After a couple of fly balls to right field, probably won't be the last such change that we will see today. 2-0 Reds with a lead. Randy Wolf, the Milwaukee pitcher, will lead off the top of the third inning, and a guy you can't fall asleep on when he's at the plate. Aaron Harang getting the start today, and the count is 2-0 to his opposite number. Wolf in his career, 5 home runs. There's a look at what he has done this season. 2-0 pitch. Now 2-1. Following Randy Wolf back to the top of the order, Ricky Weeks and Corey Hart. Sharply hit into right, Randy Wolf with his 19th base hit of 2010. So back to the top, and Ricky Weeks, who began the game with the first of what are now 3 strikeouts for Aaron.
Randy Wolf, the only guy in the ballpark not wearing a jacket.
Isn't that the truth?
I mean, look at, I'll tell you, the guys up on the pregame set, Jim Day and Jeff McCord, they're up there freezing. They had jackets on, everything. Now there's a man for you right there. Short sleeves on a day like today, 50 degrees.
I think Jim and Jeff are still maybe a little chilled from all that champagne that got dumped on them the other night. How about the guys that finally snuck up onto the plaza level and got Jim Day? Must admit, it turned the set off before I saw that, but they finally got JD up.
Well, we saw them coming out of the Reds dugout with their cups full, and they said, "Where are you going?" We're going up to the set. And they were on their way. We saw them climb the fence over by their visiting dugout and run up the stairs all the way to the set. It was right on that concourse area down the third base line, and they doused them. Christian Roberts had to do a little tap dancing on the little talkback to tell Jim Day that, we're going to hold it right there at the set for just a moment longer, because he knew what was coming.
Oh, okay.
So it was an inside setup, no doubt.
Okay.
So Jim Day, here's a memo to you. You find out who your friends are.
Well, saw that you got doused down there in the clubhouse. Tom got a pretty good spring on down there.
I waited till I thought all the champagne and everything else was gone, and Brandon Phillips snuck up behind me with a bucket.
Yeah, you underestimated. 2-1 to Ricky Weeks with Randy Wolf out at first base. And here's a peek at the assault on Jim Day.
Johnny Gomes and Arthur Rhodes. They never forget what you say about them all year long.
Apparently. 3-1 to counter Ricky Weeks. And Harang gives up his second walk. And look at the fellas down there.
Look at them shivering up there today.
You think they're at the Ice Bowl at Lambeau Field.
You think that the camaraderie right there would keep them warm?
Yes. Well, Harang has given up a couple of walks now. 2 on. With nobody out and Corey Hart standing there. And finishing up on Jim Day, it was mentioned while you were down in the clubhouse and all the other stuff was going on. Jim uttered a promise about a mohawk haircut.
He did.
He did.
I did not hear that. Tell me about it.
If recalling correctly, if the Reds win the World Series, a certain James Day is going to get a mohawk haircut.
You know what? If for no other reason, and we got plenty of them, more important than that, but I'd love to see it.
You take motivation where you can get it.
Absolutely.
And there's the guy that can administer it.
He's an expert on it.
Well, guys, he says he wants to do it if they win the NLDS. I said, oh, big boy, got to win the World Series.
Or if they win today.
Or if they win 90 games. Wait.
He also wants to paint it red, or dye it red, excuse me. Paint would be extreme, but he wants to dye it red.
I think it was earlier this year in one of the pregame segments, JD. Didn't you guys do a feature on Johnny's barber?
We sure did. Brian Giesenslaw went along for the ride and went to Johnny Gomes' barber. Yes.
Corey Hart. Strong contact with that ball, and it's off the wall. The Brewers are going to get a couple in on a 2-run double by Corey Hart to even the game up.
Corey Hart hit the ball hard the first time up. Got a base hit between the third baseman and shortstop. That time got his arms extended. And he hits it to the base of the wall. It gets by Drew Stubbs, and that enables the second run to score. So Wolf comes around, Ricky Weeks comes around, and Corey Hart picks up double number 34 on the year.
And RBI is number 101 and 102. And that's a little interesting to see them taking a peek at Aaron Harang's pitching hand there. Blister, maybe?
Well, they were talking to Aaron Harang after the very first inning. And they spent a lot of time with Brian Price, Aaron Harang, and Paul Lassard, the Reds' head trainer. And I couldn't tell, from any kind of gestures what they were talking about, but they're obviously looking at his hand right now.
That was after the first inning, the little gathering you were talking about. Nothing going on at the moment that we can tell in the Reds bullpen. Obviously, if this was a situation that prompted a change, whoever would be called upon would be given all the time needed. And now Paul Lassard has come out of the dugout.
You can see how a blister could develop. I mean, he has hardly thrown the ball at all in the last month or so. And that's what they're pointing at, right through the kind of the callus area on the middle finger. That's the pressure finger on most every pitch, but especially the breaking ball.
Understand Matt Maloney now has gotten up and started throwing out in the Reds bullpen.
What could happen is that you end up with a blister on your finger, and then you pitch enough and you tear it wide open, and you've really got no skin there. And I think that's probably what happened to Aaron Harang. He first developed the blister, then the thing broke open, and there's no way that you can put pressure on the baseball.
And how about a nice hand for Aaron Harang as he's going to leave the ball game, and who knows if this might be the last we see him in a Reds uniform. Matt Maloney comes out of the bullpen. The Brewers have tied the game at 2-2 as Skyline call to the bullpen will bring Matt Maloney up. Problem, and here you get a look at Aaron's Aces, a group that he hosts at every Sunday home game, the families of current military folks, and that is part of just the great contributions that Aaron Harang has made to this community, Chris.
Well, it's very visible, Paul. It's on Sunday afternoons, and you see that he's also involved in things beyond that. The Miracle League of Greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, through this help with the Reds Community Fund, the Miracle League Field, which he was there along with his wife Jennifer this year, ribbon cutting. He put a lot of his own money into that. It's not like he just lent his name and said, yeah, you can use my name and we'll call it Aaron Harang Field. He wrote a big-time check, and I mean a big-time check, to help them get that field underway. And, of course, he's a very strong supporter of the Reds Community Fund and just a stand-up guy, you know, the kind of guy you really root for every time out there. I've known him for a long time, ever since he came over from the Oakland A's back in 2003, and he's right now the longest tenured Red and one of the finest Reds you'll have ever met.
And an emotional time, you would imagine, for Aaron Harang sitting down there.
Yeah, probably so. I don't think anybody's talked to him yet about what's going on in the future. He probably wanted this game to go a lot differently than it ended up being. You know, just because he's 6'8" and about 270 pounds doesn't mean he's not a gentle giant and a very emotional man and very sensitive to his teammates, people in the community, and I think a champion all the way around.
You know, he's a guy that's been nominated for the Clemente Award a couple of times, once for the Branch Rickey Award, the Marvin Miller Man of the Year Award. And yes, it is about wins and losses and what you do when you're between the lines, but certainly the impression that one makes within the community and amongst teammates and amongst fans really is what makes guys favorite players. But Logan Ondrusek, not Matt Maloney, has been called from the bullpen for the Reds to replace Aaron Harang. And it'll be Ondrusek digging in to pick things up here as the Brewers have scratched across a couple of runs to tie the game here in the top of the third.
Now, the good news is the Reds have plenty of pitchers, and the other good news is that they'll have at least a couple of days off before they start their postseason. So if Dusty Baker wants to bring a guy in here or there to get a little fine inning tune-up, this is a good day to do that.
Ryan Braun 0 for 1 today. Out at second is Corey Hart, who drove in a couple with the double, scoring Randy Wolf and Ricky Weeks. There's Corey Hart, the right fielder, who delivered that big base hit. 2-2 the score. And Ondrusek missing. Braun with 128 home runs over his first 4 seasons. What a great start to a career.
You know, you stand next to the guy, and he's no big physical specimen by any means. He's strong. He's got a nice, strong handshake. But, I mean, it's just you wonder where he gets that bat speed.
Joey Votto packs that one away for the first out. Logan Ondrusek, who certainly has been up and down, but began the year with the Reds, and certainly during the course of 2010, he's had some pretty solid moments, Chris.
You know, it's got to be for a young guy like Ondrusek so exciting. I mean, he doesn't realize how rare it is for a team to go to the postseason. Yeah, he reads about it, hears about it. Gee, the Reds haven't been to the postseason, you know, in 15 years when, you know, he wasn't even a teenager then. But, you know, you can get spoiled, and you got to figure that what's in his head right now is thinking about Wednesday or Thursday, what it's going to be like when he's called on. Will he be up to the challenge? And obviously you want to take care of business here this afternoon, but I guarantee you deep in his brain, he's thinking about what's coming up here in the postseason.
Yeah, because this is an audition for some of these guys to be included on that postseason.
Well, I think those decisions have probably been pretty close to being made, and I would almost guarantee that Ondrusek would be one of those guys chosen. I think the Reds are going to go with 11 pitchers, so which will help them take an extra player, I mean a player off the bench. Of course, that has yet to be determined as to who's healthy enough to be there. Is Jim Edmonds healthy enough? Is Lance Nix healthy enough? What are the Reds going to do? Maybe bring Juan Francisco instead if one of those guys can't answer the bell. Those are the decisions I think that they can wait until the deadline, which is the morning of the first game.
3-1 to Prince Fielder, who was a strikeout victim of Aaron Harang, leaves the game having fanned 3 and walked 2 Aaron Harang. Strike from Ondrusek. Ondrusek hasn't allowed a run in any of his last 10 appearances.
Hey, this does not look like the typical last game of the year. Normally, last game of the year, the informal line from the veterans is if you don't swing at a strike, you're going to be fined. But the Brewers are grinding it out right here, and Prince Fielder takes it full before he finally puts the ball in play.
It does move hard on to third on that ground out to Valleca. So 2 are gone. Casey McGee, the third baseman. And you mentioned the situation with Nixon Edmonds. That probably really would be the last decision that's got to be made. I know a few weeks ago, Dusty was saying on one of his radio pregame shows that there was the thought possibly that Edmonds might not be ready for a first series, but maybe could be back around for the league championship series.
Of course, you change your rosters, or you can change your rosters from one series to the next. Most clubs do that.
They sure do. Carrera gobbles that up. The Brewers have tied the game at 2 here in the middle of the third. Team that has covered your Reds all season long. Jim Day, Jeff Piccoro, and Chris Welsh will give you the most comprehensive highlights and reaction from the players and coaches. After every Reds playoff game, turn to the team that has been there from the beginning. The home of the Reds, Fox Sports Ohio. Reds and Brewers tied at 2 here in the bottom of the third. Milwaukee has gone about making some changes themselves. Joe Englert has taken over in left field, replacing Ryan Braun. Orlando Cabrera, the leadoff batter for the Reds, swings and misses at the offering from Randy Wolf. Cabrera with a single and came around and scored. If you can hear it over your TV set, we don't want to cause you at home viewing any concern, but there's a fire alarm that has gone off here. I believe in the press box. 0-2, and Cabrera stays alive. You hear that siren?
Yeah, with the fire alarm going around, I went into the Reds media luncheon room. Paul, I can tell you there's panic in there. They're eating their food as fast as they can.
Did you get any and bring it back in here? Last game of the season, and somebody's got to pull a high school prank. 1-2 to Cabrera. McGee with a chance. 1 out. That never happened at St. X. Nobody pulled the fire alarm accidentally on purpose, did they? Yeah, look at the diligent scribes hanging in there.
There's our own Hal McCoy up here in the corner. He's going nowhere.
That's right. That's right. Come rain or sleet or hail or fire. Of course, Hal's going to get a chance to continue doing some of the postseason coverage for our group here at FS Ohio. And there's a guy, you know, there's so many people, and you can tell the excitement as Joey Votto stands in about the Reds being in the postseason, but a guy who's been through it as much as anybody from the media end of things, Hal McCoy, and you can tell that he's just ecstatic about it. Votto with an RBI double in the first that forced in the Reds' first run. That was driving in Cabrera, and then he came around and the RBI base hit from Johnny Gomes. Center field, 2 gone. As King tracks that down, and when the Reds get it done with an RBI this season, that means another $25 from Shakely for the Reds Community Fund. Shakely, it's done. Scott Rowland, the 2-out batter for the Reds. And hats off to the fans. Good crowd here today. Understand it was a little challenge for the fans being here in the drizzle that occurred late in the day yesterday. Scott Rowland, a fly ball to center field in his first at bat. Looking for what would be his first base hit of the series. And like a lot of others, but a guy that would benefit from a couple of days off and not playing. Randy Wolf 1-1. Now 1-2. On deck is Johnny Gomes. And very possibly, much like yesterday, after a while, you'll see some of the regulars lifted as Brandon Phillips is given way to Chris Valleca at second base. Third inning, Philadelphia and Atlanta are scoreless. That certainly is a game of impact in completing the playoff picture.
That's a matchup of a couple of very fine pitchers, too. Tim Hudson on the mound for the Atlanta Braves, and Cole Hamels, who's already been named by Charlie Manuel to toe the rubber in game number 3 for the Phillies.
What a trio of pitchers that Charlie Manuel has at his disposal.
Yeah, you know, he thought it was good last year with Cliff Lee in the middle of their rotation, but now you've got the Cole Hamels of a couple of years ago. I mean, he's throwing the ball better now, I think, than he ever has. Halladay, of course, the best pitcher in the game, and Roy Oswald is throwing the ball as well as he ever has. That's a formidable threesome.
Reds go in order. 2-2 the score. To win the Tundra at Great American Ballpark by JTM. Proudly serving the finest food service operations in the industry, restaurants, schools, and the military. JTM Food Group. By Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit us at geico.com or call 1-800-947-AUTO. And by GMC, we are professional grade. The river traffic never stops between Ohio and Kentucky as the Reds get ready for the postseason. They are currently tied with Milwaukee 2-2 as the Brewers are combating in the top of the 4th against a new Cincinnati pitcher.
Well, he was warming up in the bullpen to come in relief of Aaron Harang. Couldn't get loose earlier quick enough, so they brought in Logan Andrus to get out of the inning in the 3rd, and here's Matt Maloney.
Pitching for the first time in 9 days, Matt Maloney. Kane grounds this one by both Roland and Cabrera. So a base hit to lead off the inning.
Lorenzo Cain's got good speed, so they play him in at third base in case of a bunt. That ball just hits in front of home plate and bounces over the third baseman's head. This guy's had a lot of hits the last couple of days. No wonder he's smiling.
Yeah, really.
He had 4 of them yesterday. After a strikeout today, he's on first base again, a threat to steal.
With Alcides Escobar at the plate. Cain's 6 stolen bases in 7 opportunities. And Maloney, who went up and down on the shuttle between Louisville and Cincinnati. Actually, it was Matt Maloney when Aaron Harang had that back problem in New York that forced him to go on the shelf that created the opportunity for Matt Maloney to get a start in New York. Votto. So Escobar's down. Cain will move on to second base. Time now for our AT&T trivia question for the final regular season game of 2010. And our question today: the most career wins in the postseason for the Reds. Hazard a guess?
I have to go back to somebody in the big red machine, I guess. I don't know, Jack Bellingham.
I like that guess.
You know, that makes me feel good because you are the preeminent expert.
Oh, stop.
In our AT&T trivia question all year long. I've worked with a lot of different guys up here, Paul.
Yes, you have.
You are far and above anybody else. Everybody else guesses, you know.
I know, that's a guess.
Or at least give an educated guess.
Well, okay, if you say so. Gutierrez to center. Stubbs has it. So a couple outs. So Jack Bellingham, that's who we're sticking with. Cactus Jack Bellingham.
I got to stick with Texas or Cactus Jack.
See, he had through the 72, 75, and 76. See, had a real good 72 series against Oakland. I know at one point either set or tied a major league record with shutout innings in one of the games in Oakland against the Athletics. Randy Wolf, the 2-out batter. Wolf with one of the base hits on the day for the Brewers and scored the first of their 2 runs. That was in the 3rd inning. Matt Maloney out of Sandusky, Ohio. Saw him in the clubhouse this morning. First words out of his mouth: he's a little scared about his Buckeyes at Illinois yesterday.
He's a huge Buckeye fan.
He is a gigantic Buckeye fan. 1-1 to count. Gets Wolf pinwheeling at that, and very, very fortunate to have the opportunity just a few weeks ago to get Matt a autographed ball cap from Coach Jim Tressel to get down in the clubhouse.
Very nice.
And he had it displayed on his locker right across from yonder Alonzo while the Ohio State-Miami game was being played, of course, under a hurricane. Wolf waves and misses. Middle of the 4th, 2-2 tie score. Yes, the excitement begins October 6th for the Division Series on TBS. And also, we want to make everybody aware of the Reds rally on the square to send off the National League Central champions to the postseason. That will be tomorrow from 2 to 6 p.m. at Fountain Square. Now, the team will be there at some point in time during that proceeding. Between 2 and 4 is what we've been told, as Johnny Gomes will launch this ball into center field, but Kane tracks it down for the first out. A lot of this will depend on what happens with where and when the Reds will be playing in the postseason, but it'll be tomorrow from 2 to 6 p.m. at Fountain Square. Hall of Famer Marty Brennaman will host the festivities with speeches from Reds President and CEO Bob Castellini, President of Baseball Operations GM Walt Jocketty, Hall of Famer Joe Morgan, and manager Dusty Baker will be part of it as well.
Sounds like a good time. Fountain Square tomorrow, 2 to 6. The team will be there anywhere from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock.
Fountain Square has been the site of many great Reds postseason celebratory moments. I'm sure back in '75 and '76 you were down there for some of those.
Either official or unofficial.
Yes,
absolutely.
I remember being down there in '76 after they swept the Yankees in 4.
I was down there in '75 actually as a college student at the University of South Florida. I took 3 of my college teammates. We got in a car, drove nonstop from Tampa to Cincinnati, snagged some standing room only seats for the game.
Really?
I think it must have been game 2 where Louis Tion pitched, and ended up having some pretty good times on Fountain Square those for a few days there.
I'll bet. Jay Bruce. So then we're back down in Tampa for the end of Game 7 as Bruce tags this one to center field. Kane giving chase, looking up. 3rd homer in 2 days for Jay Bruce. The Reds have taken a lead by 1 run. Number 25. He's going into the postseason on a roll.
Well, you talk about getting hot and peaking at the right time. Jay Bruce is that. Coming back off the shelf when he had pulled a right side muscle and shelved him for a while. He was on fire when he lost his playing time. He comes back swinging the bat extremely well, hits that home run to a deep part of the ballpark, dead El Centro.
And you talked earlier when he had his first base hit today about how he's really gotten out of any kind of a habit of trying to be a dead pull hitter and looking to slap it all around.
Well, he's actually trying to pull the ball a little bit more. It appears anyway. I don't know if he's consciously trying to do that, but what we don't see him is really shorten up and try to lay it into left field, as a little opposite field dinker hitter. I mean, those balls that are up out over the plate, he's either hitting at center field or to right and right center field. But most of his power, as we have seen, have come from the gap in right center field and just about dead center. That was a breaking ball Randy Wolf sees it lofting over his head, and Jay Bruce picks up another home run. Another one off the left-handers. I think it's nearly 50-50 now for Jay Bruce. Three of his last 4 home runs have come off of southpaws. That's a good sign.
Stubbs up the middle. Base hit. Of course, that homer Tuesday night off of Houston will be one that will be long remembered for a long time.
It's interesting because here's a 23-year-old Jay Bruce who a lot of guys, they struggle when they're first up in the major leagues, especially when they're as young as Jay Bruce was. And he's trying to make an argument that he's a full-time player, not a platoon player, not a guy that you want to sit against left-handers. And until this year, the argument was much more forceful for the fact that you should sit him against left-handers. Until this year, especially lately when he starts lighting up lefties with home runs, you want to stick him in the lineup.
Stubbs on, Hernandez, base hit. 3 straight knocks for the Reds. And not that it's always fair to draw comparisons, but just what you're talking about, Chris. Remember Paul O'Neill for the longest time had the hardest time with left-handed pitching, and all it took was more exposure to it, and he ends up being a batting champ in the American League.
Well, you're right, Paul, but what really compounds the situation is that a lot of guys that left-handed hitters will face late in the ball game are left-handed specialist pitchers that are designed to get in and just get you out, period. That's their whole job of being on the team. So it makes it awfully tough on a guy like Jay Bruce. But what he's learned to do is to jump on a pitcher's mistake, and Wolf got one up, and Bruce makes him pay.
Matt Maloney, who is 1 for 3 in the year at the plate, will stand in, squares the bunt, pulls back, Stubbs in at third.
Well, aggressive base running right there. Stubbs really never stops. He kind of gets a walking lead. Kataris' throw not nearly in time. That'll force the Brewers to bring the infield in.
So runners now at the corners with one out. Swipe number 30 for Drew Stubbs. Jay Bruce with a homer that has given the Reds a 1-run lead. And Randy Wolf dealing with Matt Maloney. Here's an update on the Braves and the Phillies. 2-0 Philadelphia. The other game of major consequence will be San Diego and San Francisco later this afternoon. Latos and Sanchez, the pitchers in that one. 1-1 to Matt Maloney. Gets it down. Advances. Hernandez on to second base.
Now, that's what they call a safety squeeze right there. You get a sacrifice if you're Matt Maloney on that because you move the runner to second base. But at third base, Drew Stubbs is watching what develops. If that was a great bunt down the first baseline and they didn't have a play on him, he would have gone home. But Randy Wolf comes off the mound. He does the right thing. He checks Stubbs at third base. Then he gets the out at first.
And another area of improvement for this team this year, Chris, certainly has been what they've done in some of these bunting situations with runners at third.
They've had at least 4 successful sacrifice squeezes or suicide squeezes. Something that we haven't seen in the Reds team do for a long time. I think there's been several others that, don't go down and classified as successful squeezes, but they've tried them a few times. Overall, I think they've been real good at getting runners moved up, either by a ground ball to the right side or laying down a bunt.
Chris Valenka, the 2-out batter, taking over after Brandon Phillips was 0 for 2 today. Young guy having an outstanding season at Louisville, and he got called up while the Reds were in San Francisco, and it's been great to see him get the opportunity to play. International League All-Star with the bats. Three-2 Reds with the lead. Jay Bruce with a home run, a solo shot with 1 out here in the 4th to push Cincinnati ahead by a tally. Hernandez and Stubbs, the runners on the base paths. Randy Wolf and Chris Valenka with a count 1-2. Orlando Cabrera on deck. Speaking of Philadelphia, that's who Randy Wolf began his major league career with and earned most of his bones. He's put together a strong finish to 2010. It gets Valenka for the Reds. Thanks to Jay Bruce and a big fly to center field. They've taken a 3-2 lead over Milwaukee. Bruce goes deep. And it gives the Reds a 3-2 lead on his 25th homer of 2010. And if he can stay hot going into the postseason, that bodes well for the Reds. And not to be slighted is the way he's played defensively this year as well, too. Get the answer to our AT&T trivia question as the Reds have that 3-2 lead. The most career wins in the postseason for the Reds. Both of us up here were guesstimating it was Jack Billingham. We were wrong.
Wow.
The Hawk, Clay Carroll, Raleigh Eastwick, and Don Gullet.
First time you've been wrong all year, Paul.
That's not true, but thank you. All of them with 4 wins in the postseason. If I remember right, Raleigh Eastwick was the guy out there on the mound when the final out was made in the '75 World Series against Boston at Fenway Park. As Ricky Weeks will lead it off against Matt Maloney. Don Gullet started game 1 for the Reds in '76 against the Yankees, and then started game 1 for the Yankees in '77. So Ross Grimsley up there as well. Ross part of the '72 National League Championship teams. So you and your buddies got back to Tampa for the end of the World
Series.
Series.
We had to go to school sometime. At least that's what our parents said.
Yes. So do you remember where you were when the last out was made?
Of that World Series?
That World Series, don't you?
Watching it on TV.
Okay. It's while studying in the library, probably.
I don't think they had the TVs in the library, so I certainly wasn't there.
Okay. Well, there was a whole bunch of us when that last out was made. It was in one of the on-campus establishments at Xavier University, a long-departed social gathering place called Mother Tucker's Tavern in the basement of Brockman Hall. When the last out was made and that ball was caught in the outfield, couldn't believe we'd seen the Reds finally win a World Series in our lifetime. Weeks on with a walk from Matt Maloney. And now Ricky Weeks is going to lead the baseball game as Ken Maka doing a lot of what Dusty Baker is doing. Carlos Gomez will come in and take over as a pinch runner. And we mentioned the name Ken Maka, and you talked about it earlier, Chris. There is a lot of speculation as Corey Hott bounces this one at Roland. To Valleca, Tavada, 2 for the price of 1. But a lot of speculation that Ken Maka might be seeing his last game as Brewers manager.
Well, you know, he's in a tough spot. He had a ball club that was pretty good offensively, again, like they normally are, but they couldn't pitch this year. And oftentimes it's a manager that gets blamed. They had major pitching problems right from the very get-go. LaTroy Hawkins was one reliever that came in that was supposed to be an impact player. He did not work out, obviously, with an injury that sidelined him for the entire year. Randy Wolf signed to a big-time 3-year deal after being with Los Angeles last year. Got off to a horrible start. And they fell out of it very quickly.
Trevor Hoffman's difficulty is a big part of it.
Exactly. And Trevor Hoffman, of course, was just a couple of games away from nailing down save number 600 when he was signed, you know, as a closer. And he struggled mightily early in the year. They needed a new closer. So it was a year in transition for the Brewers. And, of course, having reached the postseason in the last few years, they had their expectations up in Milwaukee were very high for that club.
Joe Englund, the batter, he took over for Ryan Braun in left field. Of course, Trevor Hoffman becomes a free agent after this season is over. The guy that came up through the Reds organization and then was claimed by Florida in the expansion draft.
I don't know if he's made it official yet, but I suspect he's probably ready to hang up the cleats.
And while coming up through the Reds, if I remember right, wasn't he an infielder and got converted to a pitcher?
Yes, he was. He was a shortstop. It was back in 1992. I think the Reds took him off the protected list of players in your organization that could not be picked up in the expansion draft, and he was one of the early draft picks by the Florida Marlins. Ended up going from the Marlins to the Padres, and the rest is closer history.
And you would think Hall of Fame history. to having reached that level you just talked about. Full count now. Matt Maloney against Joe England. Prince Fielder in the on-deck circle. The Reds with a 1-run lead over the Brewers here in the top of the 5th inning. Second walk of the inning issued by Matt Maloney. The first one went to Weeks, and then Gomez, who took over for him, was erased in a double play. Prince Fielder 0 for 2, now hitless in his last 13 appearances at the plate. Make that very possibly in his last 14 appearances at the plate. 3-2. Reds have the lead over Milwaukee. Now it's time for the Fifth Third Bank hardest workers in the game.
Outside of team practice, how do you train so you keep yourself performing at a major league level?
Well, we're lucky we have a good training staff and strength and conditioning coach. I make a point to spend time with him probably 2 or 3 times a week. I get in my conditioning. I do stuff for my core. I lift upper body, lower body. We have all kinds of different exercises that not only keep you in good shape, but also are help you play well on the baseball field and help you stay healthy. So I make a point to get in as much work as I can, and then on top of that, I do as well as I can, getting my rest and eating well.
Fifth Third Bank, the things we do for dreams.
With the Browns exclusively on FoxSportsOhio.com, presented by 1-800-SAFE-AUTO and SafeAuto.com. And a preview of tonight's game as well. Here is a look at the Honda standings and what is going on with the remaining pieces of the postseason picture. The Giants and the Padres battling for the West, as well as possibly falling into play in the wild card with what may happen with Atlanta as well. 3-2 Reds with a lead over the Brewers as Orlando Cabrera will lead off the bottom of the 5th inning against Randy Wolf. Strokes that one foul. Milwaukee has made some more changes. Carlos Gomez, who came into the game as a pinch runner for Weeks, is in left field, and Joe England will move from left field to second base with Weeks out. Starting to resemble, but about maybe 6 substitutions short of a spring training game.
Oh, we'll get there.
Cabrera to center
now.
Oh, no. Not in a hurry for that. 1 out.
I'll never forget it was a spring training game. It was the very last spring training game the Reds played against the Phillies about 4 years ago. And Bob Boone, whenever Bob Boone was the manager, and he used 34 players in one spring training game. He was calling kids off to one of the back minor league fields to play in a big league game. And that game happened to be televised by the Philadelphia TV station. And boy, I'll tell you what, Harry Callis and Chris Wheeler and the gang, they were some kind of furious at Bob Boone because they were bringing kids in. They're trying to do a TV broadcast. They had no idea who they were because their numbers didn't match their names on the roster. There was no roster. And 34 players was a lot to keep track of.
That's incredible. We'll never complain about doing an NFL preseason game after hearing that story again. Joey Votto. An RBI double to bring the Reds' first 2 runs across to the first inning. One out. Randy Wolf dealing to Votto. And that'll leave in the count. We don't know if we'll get the chance to see him anymore, but we were talking about Joey and his ability to adjust. But 2010, all of his clutch base hits, Chris, will be something that will always be remembered.
Well, his clutch hits, yes, but his devotion to hitting the ball the other way has really separated him from being an average player. And I think that's where his success lies. In fact, if you just charted the balls that he hits opposite field, his batting average when he hits a ball the other way is .452. And not because he's able to dink him in there and drop him in over the shortstop's head, but he's able to drive the ball. Many of his home runs have gone to left field.
Tries to go that way. Think back to that game that Sunday in Los Angeles against Jonathan Broxton, a 10-pitch at-bat in which he was able to come up with an RBI hit, and the extra inning base hit he had for the game-winning run in San Francisco against Barry Zito.
Both of those very memorable. I mean, you just look in his eyes and you can see that he has just got firm resolve, that it is down to between him and the pitcher. And that's the way he boils down the game of baseball. Now, you'll see him look up off to the right, a little bit. He'll look up at the very top of the stands, trying to clear his head a little bit, just try to take all the distraction out of his at-bat so he can focus entirely on the pitch.
Starts the day second in batting average behind Carlos Gonzalez, third on homers behind Pujols and Dunn, and third in RBIs behind Pujols and Gonzalez. Wolf's payoff pitch. And Votto will trot on down to first with a walk. Visit the official online shop of the Cincinnati Reds at Reds.com. Browse the largest selection of official gear, including the latest apparel, memorabilia, and authentic classics for the whole family. Get your gear straight from the source. Shop the Reds.com official store. Down here and grab you some 2010 National League Central Division champion paraphernalia. So Votto on with a walk. Scott Rowland at the plate. A couple of fly balls to center field for the Reds' third baseman. Votto coaxes the first walk of the day from Randy Wolf to get down at first base. Wolf 1-0 to Rowland. Kane into right center. Chases that baby down.
Sometimes with our Foxbow camera, we slow the game down so slow that we can see the spin of the ball. This time we're going to see the elbow of Randy Wolf and how it reacts to the torque that he puts on it during a pitching motion. You see the extreme movement right there. He leads with the elbow. This is very typical of every pitcher. You almost see the muscles and ligaments coming out of his arm right there. And as he pronates or turns that ball over, you see how quickly and where the release point is. Of course, Wolf had Tommy John surgery back in 2006. He's also been sidelined with some shoulder problems, not unlike most of the major league pitchers out there. If you pitch long enough, eventually you're going to hurt your arm. At least the majority of them do. But when you slow it down that slow, it gives you a completely different look, doesn't it?
That is a great feature that we've been able to have this year. Of course, it was apparently messing around with his golf swing this year that kind of got him in a positive role.
Yeah, that's what we heard from Brian Anderson, who's the play-by-play announcer for the Brewers. He was saying that, for the longest time, you get coached and you think about the mechanics of pitching and where your arm should be, and where your foot should be, where your head should be, where your release point, and you get so wrapped up in the mechanics of it that you take away the normal athleticism that got you there. And he's fooling around with his golf swing one day and he says, you know what? I need to be more athletic on the mound.
And an athletic swing for a base hit for Johnny Gomes. So the Reds with a couple on.
That was just a fastball, a four-seam fastball that Johnny Gomes gets it in his wheelhouse on the inner part of the plate, and he is all over it.
But it looks like Jay Bruce's day is done, as Dusty Baker is going to call on Willie Bloomquist. to come up and hit. So Jay Bruce's 25th homer of the year, the second of his 2 base hits on the day. That came in the 4th. That's the difference in the game at the moment. There's a look at Willie's numbers in his 10 games since having been acquired from Kansas City for a player to be named later. Willie would not be eligible for the postseason roster. So 2 on with a couple out. The Reds trying to expand on a 1-run lead. Chris Heisey is standing on the on-deck circle now for the Reds. See Brandon Phillips already having gone out of the game for Cincinnati. Jay Bruce now done with Bloomquist pinch hitting for him. Heisey in the spot that had been occupied by Drew Stubbs. 2-0. Goes off Contreras. 2-1. Yes, the goal would be enough just to keep some of these guys sharp in the last game.
Yeah, you know what? You're going to be sharp. I mean, there's no way you're going to go into the postseason thinking that you're not sharp. You haven't had enough at-bats, unless you're a guy like Jim Edmonds, who really has not had any at-bats to speak of anyway because of his injury, or Lance Nix. Those are the guys that are going to have some rust. But as far as those guys that play every day, if you give them a couple of days off, that should be no big deal. Because it's more of a mental game in the postseason than anything else.
2-2 to Willie Bloomquist.
It's a game really within your mind of trying to slow the game down and just remind yourself you're only playing baseball. Forget about the crowd. Forget about the potential impact of your at bat or the pitch you're about to throw. And just go out and play the game like you did all year long. And this team really should believe in themselves because, you know, Dusty Baker gave them a talk in spring training. In fact, we were revisiting on that when I spoke with Dusty before the game down on the field. He and Billy Hatcher were both talking about the talk that Dusty gave the team and said, you know what, in the last part of the season in 2009, the Reds played as well as any team that made the postseason, you know, the last month and a half. And there's no reason that if you play like that all year long that you're not going to be a postseason team. You will be a postseason team if you can string that kind of approach back together again. But this time from the very beginning of the year, and here they are, hoping to get their 91st win of the year this year.
Bottom of the 4th, Atlanta has taken a 5-2 lead over Philadelphia. Two and 2, Randy Wolf to Willie Bloomquist. Now full. You know, one of the other keys would seem to be, Chris, that during this year when the Reds would get into a losing streak, it didn't get them to where they got into such a mental funk it became a prolonged losing streak.
Well, they have much better starting pitching, and that's the reason why. They didn't have any one stopper that they needed to wait his turn to come around the rotation again before they stopped the losing streak. What they had, though, were great arms. I mean, you know, Johnny Cueto, Homer Bailey, Travis Wood comes up, Edinson Volquez comes back. I mean, you're talking about guys that all throw the ball extremely well.
Bloomquist with a ground ball. That'll take care of the Reds. 3-2 Cincinnati with the lead.
you. I started the season with the bleacher creatures. I will end the regular season with the bleacher creatures, the common folks out here, something Chris Welsh doesn't know about, something he can't relate to. Nonetheless, I am out here. How we doing, people? Time now for our Meyer text poll question. Who do you think the Reds are going to play? Text your votes to 37664. Standard text message rates apply. Philly, San Francisco, or San Diego. Stay tuned. Could get crazy. Paul Keels.
Yes, Jim Day.
Uncommon man, Chris Welsh.
I like it up there, Jim. I'm glad you're up there in my absence.
Yes.
Keep the people together, keep them going, and make sure they all show up at Fountain Square tomorrow.
Yes.
For the big Reds rally between 2 and 6. You'll be there, I'll be there. We'll all have some fun.
We'll rock and roll. But are you going to mingle with the common people, Chris?
Absolutely.
All right. Sorry to call you out.
Kind. Absolutely right. It's about time we saw you back up there.
Started the season and ending the regular season with my people out here.
Yes.
Except they're chanting Mohawk, but that's another story.
Yes, they are.
Got myself in trouble on that one.
Yes, you did.
But, hey, if they win the World Series, I'll gladly do it.
Open mouth, insert size 12.
Yes. There is one person in the world that doesn't want me to do it, but that's another story, too.
I'll bet she doesn't.
No.
McGee with a line drive foul there. Most people picking Philly. Maybe the question might be, Chris, who would you want to see the Reds play? You know, we can wish and hope.
I thought Joe Morgan said it very well the other night when he was on with the guys on TV during the Astros series and said, any way you cut it, it appears like the trip to the World Series goes through Philadelphia. And I think one way or another, you're going to end up having to play the Phillies if you're going to get to the World Series. And then the conventional thought is, well, if you acknowledge the Phillies are the best team in the National League, why would you want to play them in a longer series than a shorter series? But it really doesn't matter. I think you got to get out there and play your best baseball.
Well, a base hit for Casey McGee. We've got a bunch of changes for the Reds. We'll get around to explaining some of those as Dusty Baker's got Juan Francisco at third, Paul Yanish at short, Miguel Cairo is taken over at first, Lance Nix is in left, Chris Heisey in center, Willie Bloomquist in right. Lorenzo Cain, the batter for the Brewers, and puts this into play where Lance Nix is in position. He's got a hold of it. First out of the inning. And Lance Nix, a guy that's certainly trying to get himself back to where he is healthy and can be part of what's going on. I'm trying to remember, is that game in San Francisco where both Nix and Edmonds both got hurt at the same time?
Right, yeah, they went from having too many outfielders to too few in about 20 minutes.
So there's Lance Nix, who took over for Johnny Gomes. Alcides Escobar. A sacrifice to move a runner up and a walk. Matt Maloney stretching it out on the mound. It's his first work on the mound in 9 days. Escobar strokes this one to left. 2 gone. Here's a look at Great American Ballpark. Game number 162. A nice crowd on hand here today as the Reds have a 3-2 lead over Milwaukee. We want to take the opportunity to wish happy birthday today to Mildred Tuttle. 100 years young, a longtime member of the Rosie Reds, has attended every opening day since 1979, save one, including this year at the age of 99, and is already looking forward to next year's opening day. Happy birthday, Mildred.
Happy birthday indeed, Mildred. A lot of opening days there now.
Brian Hunterman's aunt.
Well, that's even more reason to wish you a happy birthday.
Yes. Guitarist, the catcher. George today 0 for 2. Opening day at 99. That's some spirit now.
Mm-hmm.
And even better doing it next year at 100. 2-0. Of course, the opening day next year, baseball is trying to make sure, do what they can to keep the World Series from spilling into November. So opening days are going to believe on Thursdays.
Yeah, there'll be a game scheduled on Thursday. That's when Reds opening day will be. It'll be an off day on Friday in the event that there's an inclement day on opening day. They have to cancel the game, and then they have the weekend series. So I think it's a very smart move for baseball. They'll move the season up a little bit. You know, this year, if everything goes long, you could be playing the World Series in the month of November. That's what they're trying to get away from.
Wouldn't that be nice at Target Field in Minneapolis?
You know what? If the Reds are there,
yes,
it would be very nice. We can layer up.
A walk to Contreras. So the Brewers with a couple on. Milwaukee will be the team here for opening day next year. So Matt Maloney trying to work out of a jam, and he'll face Randy Wolf with a couple out. Randy Wolf with one of the base hits in the day for Milwaukee, one of their 5. That was a single in the 3rd inning. This is Minnesota's first year of playing in that new outdoor stadium, Target Field.
They were very fortunate in the spring. They had a warm spring in Minnesota. They didn't have any of those late snowfalls like you oftentimes see, you know, mid and late April where they get dumped on. But no guarantee from there.
If not mistaken, their first World Series title involved the first World Series with a dome back in the late 80s when they beat the Cardinals. Tom Kelly's bunch. That was when the former Red Ron Gann was on at first base, and there was a close play, and Kent Herbeck, in almost a WWF move, just grabbed Gant, lifted him off the bag, and they were able to get him out. And Kirby Puckett had that memorable home run. Well, that was the later series against Atlanta when Puckett hit that home run, or the same series. Maloney trying to bear down 1-2 against Wolf. Got him. Reds still protecting here in the middle of the 6th. A 1-run lead at 3-2. Coors Light Freeze Cam and a peek at the 4 home runs that Jay Bruce has hit on this homestand. A couple of them yesterday, one today. And of course on Tuesday hit the long ball that clinched the division title for the Reds. Our Coors Light Freeze Cam. That was our Coors Light Freeze Cam, brought to you by Frost Brew. Coors Light. 3-2 Reds with a lead over the Brewers here in the bottom of the 6th at Great American Ballpark. Everybody bundled up, ready for fall baseball. Boy, it was a summer that saw some extreme heat during the season, both here in Cincinnati and at other spots. And now that's what you get this time of year, as Chris Izey will lead it off for the Reds, having taken over in center field for Drew Stubbs. 1 for 2 with a stolen base. Izey 0 for 2 yesterday. 4 pinch hit home runs for the Reds here in 2010 for Chris Heisey.
He's really came on the scene and just exploded. And, you know, a young man that never took for granted any day that he's been able to put on a big league uniform. But it just seemed like every time he gets into a ball game as a pinch hitter or a defensive replacement, something exciting happens. And you mentioned those pinch hit home runs. Remember a catch that he made when he went out and replaced Jay Bruce, I believe, down the right field line, saved the game with a catch over the right field wall.
His first base hit was a home run early in the season in Pittsburgh. 1-2 as Randy Wolf is eating up some innings for the Brewers today. It's Heisey for the first out of the inning.
Hey, Reds fans, if you're in the restaurant industry, let JTM help you with great tasting products for your menu. Inspired solutions, better results, JTM.
Now, I want to tell you, it was with great envy seeing that JTM truck on TV the other night. Third strikeout for Wolf. Saw you guys down there, the whole crew getting fed.
You know what? That's all orchestrated by Jesse Jackson and Michael Pickett of JTM. Jesse makes sure that he's working the day that they bring that chuck wagon over here. Of course, he had no regard whether I was working or you were working.
That's right.
We were in parts unknown.
That's right.
So, and did he save a hamburger for us? No.
You know, somebody could have called us and said, "Hey, this is what's going on." There's Jesse Jackson, our man.
He's watching that chuck wagon they bring over here, you know, the big griller from JT, walks out like a hawk. Make sure everybody's get fed. Everybody but us.
That's right. His 2 friends that he forgot. Ramon Hernandez. 1 base hit on the day. And it was nice to, for the first time in a few weeks, come in here today, Chris, and see the plaque for Big Daddy, Mark Wags out there. Mark Wagner. Our good friend who we lost a few weeks ago, and a nice commemorative plaque outside the booth here at Great American Ballpark.
We'll be always remembered here.
Yes.
And always missed.
Here and other sports venues around town and around the area. 1-2 the count to Ramon Hernandez. Corky Miller is on deck. The Reds with a 3-2 lead. The decisive blow so far has been the 25th homer of the year for Jay Bruce. And there is the flag for Daddy Wags, Mark Wagner. Gone but not forgotten. Meanwhile, in Atlanta, it is 6-2 Braves ahead of the Phillies in the bottom of the 5th inning. Atlanta trying to do what they can to get in by way of the wild card. The Giants and the Padres trying to decide the West, as well as possibly the wild card.
Well, if they win today, the Braves don't automatically get in.
Correct.
They still need some help, and that help would, I would imagine, come from a Padre win. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct. This is the 100th pitch of the afternoon for Randy Wolf upcoming. Escobar. That takes care of the Reds catcher. So with 2 outs, Corky Miller will come up and bat for Matt Maloney. Corky went deep yesterday. And this is a guy that certainly has been highly thought of, not only this year, but last year, toward the end of the season. Dusty Baker talked about it when Corky was brought up for the first time this year, how important he was to this ball club last year in handling the pitchers.
How many organizations, or how many baseball organizations out there right now at the big league level can brag that they have 3 catchers that they feel very comfortable with behind the plate calling signals for all their big league pitchers?
He was able to log some time due to both stints on the disabled list for Ryan Hannigan and Ramon Hernandez. In the bullpen while Miller is batting for Matt Maloney is Aroldis Chapman.
Corky hit a home run here to dead center field. That last swing is trying to duplicate it.
2-1 the count.
Not carrying today.
No, it's not. England takes care of that. It is still a 1-run lead for the Reds at 3-2. AT&T, rethink possible. Well, your Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky Honda dealers. Visit mycincinnatihondadealer.com for current offers. And by Grainger, over 900,000 products to help you get your job done. Grainger, for the ones who get it done. A little chilly out on the river, you would think. But the Hardy prevail, and the Reds have a 3-2 lead over Milwaukee in the top of the 7th here at Great American Ballpark. Aroldis Chapman has emerged from the bullpen and now toes the rubber for the Red Legs.
Well, that's why you heard the big crowd cheer, and it is a big crowd here at Great American Ballpark on this finale of the regular season. When they were announced that Aroldis Chapman would come into the ball game, always exciting. They paint the scoreboard here, and they use a big part of the scoreboard to say Chapman, need for speed, 105 mph. He drives a car actually with a license plate that says 102 mph, and from what I understand, he inquired whether in the state of Ohio or Kentucky there was available 103, 104, 105 mph. So, Paul, you may have to turn in one of your license plates.
Oh, no.
My car won't go that fast, even downhill.
Any car I drive doesn't go that fast. Corky Miller is behind the plate. Speed limit and below, baby, in most cases. So Aroldis Chapman, Carlos Gomez will be the batter to face Chapman.
I got to say something again. We touched on it about a week or so ago. And as you look at the radar gun readings of Aroldis Chapman, no, he's not hurt his arm. He still throws 100 miles an hour. But a couple of weeks ago, they sent some technicians out to Great American Ballpark to recalibrate the equipment that is used to judge the radar gun speeds of the pitches. And when it was recalibrated, somehow the speed was reduced by 3 or 4 miles per hour. So everything that you see up there is a little bit short of what it usually was. So I'm not sure how this will go into the official figures at the end of the year, whether they're going to adjust them back up or not. But don't worry, Aroldis has not lost his fastball, even if he is only throwing 98.
Only 1-2 pitch. Strike 3, see you later.
Now this one, he looks like he takes a little bit off, but he feathers the corner right there. A little bit of a comeback action on that fastball. Our radar gun had it at 92. Looks a little quicker than that in the batter's box.
Corey Hart standing in with 1 out. prior to the start of this inning. In the game notes, Chapman for the season 75 times has reached at least 100 miles per hour. Hart trying to catch up on that. Milwaukee's had a chance to see him a fair amount of times now.
Yeah, he made his major league debut against the Brewers. They've gotten more looks of Chapman, I think, than anybody else. Where speculation is for Roldis next year that they will try him back in the starting rotation.
That gets Hart.
Just trying to overthrow the slider a little bit. Maybe that's a changeup.
Got him on a bounce there.
Not very often that you actually see a pitcher hit the grass. That's a changeup grip right there. He's got a little split of a splitter, it looks like.
Broken bat will land as a base hit for Corey Hart.
I don't think it was a splitter. I think he was a breaking ball that he throws, and we showed you his index finger on that ball, and I thought it was his middle finger. I don't think he throws a splitter. I think his changeup is a more conventional changeup, but his main two pitches are fastball, slider.
Saw Corey Hart down there chuckling with Miguel Cairo and Ed Cedar about dealing with that stuff. Joe Englund the batter. Hart on to second.
Well, this is the kind of performance by Roldis Chapman that if you're Dusty Baker, you're scratching your head thinking, all right, let's see if he gets this together. And you don't know if he's overthrowing or whether he's just not in sync today, but he threw a pitch that didn't even make it to the dirt in front of home plate. That's really a wild one right there we showed you. He threw another one right by Corky Miller there. He's not an easy guy to catch anyway, but you got to wonder, going into the postseason, he could be a difference maker, Roldis Chapman. If he comes in throwing the ball the way he can, finding the strike zone, he is nearly unhittable. But if he's off with his control, you don't have to hit him.
And for both Philadelphia and, I believe, right, San Francisco, neither of them have seen him in person. So even those folks trying to put a book together on him. Hart got a little of his attention.
Well, he had an intention to try to steal third base right there. Chapman looked around at the last moment. Nobody really jockeying him back and forth.
Give a look at Joe Englund while he's at the plate there. With his back arm, he's got a little Joe Morgan chicken flack.
He chicken flacked that ball right off to the left side, and it nearly picked off Prince Fielder in the on-deck circle.
Englund came in after a couple of appearances at the plate for Ryan Braun. There's Prince Fielder. And Corey Hart out at second. Bloomquist and Corey Hart will move up the station. Maybe not quite as pronounced as what Joe used to do.
You mean that back elbow right there? He's kind of flipping it up and down a little bit. Yeah, holds his hands low, but then when the pitch comes, he tries to get those hands back up there, although not all that high. Lazy fly ball advances the runner.
Prince Fielder hitless in his last 14 at bats. Hart down at third with 2 out and Chapman missing. This could be the last at bat for Prince Fielder in a Milwaukee uniform, as we talked about earlier. Some of the speculation and what could happen, and the story was even going around at the end of their homestand. Ken Maka came out and took him out of a game after a walk so he could get a round of applause from the fans in Milwaukee if it does end up being the end of his time with the Brewers. Brewer manager. Previously employed in same role with Oakland, and a lot of speculation that Ken Macha's time might be coming to an end in Milwaukee as the skipper of that team. Uh-oh. Got it. Chapman brought it right to the plate. Miller tagged hard out. 3-2. Reds ahead of the Brewers here at Great American Ballpark in game number 162 of the 2010 season.
The attempt to steal. Aroldis Chapman takes his time. Corey Hart thinking, all right, I'm going to go right now, see if I can beat the plate of the plate. And he was hoping that he could beat the delivery to the plate, because you're certainly not going to beat an Aroldis Chapman fastball to the plate. Hart thrown out. Reds lead still 1.
And here we are in the middle of the 7th. We will pause at Great American Ballpark with the Reds holding a 3-2 lead with the playing of God Bless America. Aaron Harang, who got the starting assignment today. He went 2+ innings, gave up 3 hits, couple of runs, struck out 3, walked a couple, but a blister on his right middle finger prompted Aaron Harang to have to leave. And there you see the response from the fans. And Aaron Harang is a guy that the future, well, it's very uncertain right now, but the past has been significant contributions from that young man to this organization and this community.
Well, you measure pitchers and baseball players sometimes by statistics, but you measure people by something much more than that. And I don't think you can beat a guy like Aaron Harang.
And a tough day for Aaron Harang with the emotions that must be going through him. Chris Valenco, the leadoff batter for the Reds, bottom of the 7th. Cincinnati with a 3-2 lead over the Milwaukee Brewers. Here's a look at what Chris has done. 0 for 1. He took over after Brandon Phillips had an 0 for 2 day. And the Malika will ground this. Escobar, a nice stop. And a nice snag on the other end by Prince Fielder.
Wow, we get a little snapshot right there as to why the Brewer people are so excited about Alcides Escobar. We heard about his good glovemanship. We know he can go to his right and make a long, strong throw, but this time he throws it from the seat of his pants after knocking a ball down that had base hit written all over it. Big league play.
And another one right there on the back end of it. Much to the appreciation of starting pitcher Randy Wolf.
Well, you're not kidding. I mean, you cannot overestimate how important that is to a starting pitcher, especially to a guy who's already thrown around 108, 109 pitches. He wants to stay in a ball game and hang around long enough maybe to get the win if the Brewers can come back. You need plays like that to stay in there.
And Prince Fielder gets a lot of credit for his hitting. Maybe deserves more for his fielding down there. He has really worked and improved himself.
He can pick it.
And another guy who can, Paul Yanish, at the plate for the first time today. And where would this club be? You could say it with almost about anybody, but where would they have been without Paul Yanish?
Well, you know, we've said it before. Paul Yanish really thought that he had that #1 shortstop job nailed down all winter long. He prepared himself for spring training, and then right before the spring training season began, the Reds went out and signed Orlando Cabrera. And Giannis ended up being on the bench. He did not play a lot in the first part of the year, but when he was called on in those 81 games, you see what he did. Not only the numbers offensively, but just the superb defense that he brings to the table. I mean, I don't know if there's a better defensive shortstop in the league than the guy you're looking at right now.
Bounces out to second base. Paul Yanish, during that time you talked about, Chris, for a month, the starting shortstop with Cabrera out 27 games, hit .263. 3 homers, 12 RBIs at a time in which the Reds went 18-9.
You know, if you're Paul Yanish, you bide your time. You're obviously playing on a winning team. That is the most important thing of all. Sure, he wants to be a starter. And he'll get his shot. But right now, you bide your time. You learn what you can from the good players that are around you, like Orlando Cabrera, like Scott Rowland. And you become part of a winning organization. That's what it's all about. This is a team sport.
And another guy who bought into the team concept, Miguel Cairo. Got his 40th start of the season yesterday at third. And it's been when Scott Rowland has needed a day off or been aching, or when Joey Votto had problems early in the year with a sore back, it was Miguel Cairo they turned to.
You know, I think that Miguel Cairo was kind of part of the master plan also for Walt Jocketty. It came down to Cairo, Drew Sutton, Aaron Miles, Chris, another infielder who's from Louisville. I'll think of him right after I finish the sentence, but as to who would be this utility guy. And as it turned out, Miguel Cairo, he didn't have a terrific spring, but he was solid. And I think because he's played on winning teams before, because he's a veteran, because he was a guy that you pretty much know what he's going to give you, that's the reason he got the nod over those other guys.
Chris Burke.
Chris Burke. That's who I'm thinking of. Thank you, Joel.
1-2 the count to Cairo. Tries right field. Miguel started the game not too terribly long ago in the outfield when the Reds were really in a pinch with outfielders. He's played third, first, second. Been used as a pinch hitter.
I think the biggest and the first contribution that Cairo gave is when Joey Votto was the first guy to miss some games. Had a stiff neck, if I'm not mistaken. And Cairo stepped in, and during the time that Votto was out, I think Cairo hit something like 600. Something ridiculous. And he was even better than what Votto would normally give you. So when you put a substitute in and he actually exceeds what your starter is going to do, you know you're onto something special that year.
Miguel last year was with the Philadelphia organization. Was not active during the postseason with the Phillies, but was around that winning feeling. 2-2. Juan Francisco would hit next should the inning continue. And it will. As Cairo will waltz in with a double.
The Brewers must think Cairo's the next guy should be enshrined in the Hall of Fame. He's hitting over 500 against the Brewers this year.
So Juan Francisco will come up to bat. Took over for Scott Rowland. The Reds have pretty much flipped everybody around. All the guys who started at the 8 defensive positions at the beginning of the game are done. Here's a look at Juan Francisco's numbers. He began the year on opening day with the Reds. But that was before Mike Leake was put on the active roster, when that 5th spot in the rotation was in need. 23 appearances and 3 starts for Juan Francisco. Righted McGee to take care of the inning. Still a 1-run lead for the Reds, 3-2. Energy Center. Reds players, games, music, collectible merchandise, and more. Keep up on the latest at Reds.com/RedsFest. 37,582 on hand here for the final regular season game today at Great American Ballpark. The Reds with a 1-run lead over the Milwaukee Brewers. And another pitcher emerges from the bullpen.
Well, he won't make 70 games appeared in this year, but Arthur Rose, despite having been sidelined for a lot of the year, at least from a pain managing standpoint. I mean, he's had plantar fasciitis really from early in the season. And every time he's taken the mound, it has been taking a lot of effort for him to get out there and do what he needed to do. He marks the initials of his son in the mound before he toes the rubber. Son had passed away a couple of years ago, just 4 days shy of Christmas Day. Forever in his thoughts.
And Rhodes will start the inning against Prince Fielder, who was standing at the plate when Corey Hart was thrown out trying to steal home. Not been a productive weekend for the big fella at the plate here in Cincinnati. Mentioned prior to that third out of that last inning, he is now hitless in his last 14 appearances at the plate. 3-2 Reds with a lead. The difference right now, a Jay Bruce solo home run. His 25th of the year. Valleca. Fielder's gone.
I'll tell you what, Chris Valleca can pick it a little bit. He made a play against the Astros, diving for a ball up the middle. That really must have increased his value for the Reds and in the eyes of other teams. He goes a long way right here to glove this ball. He eventually circles it and is able to get a lot on his throw. But we saw him make a diving catch behind the bag and throw from his knees to make a nice play against the Astros. In very limited play, he's been sharp defensively.
He sure has. Casey McGee, the batter. Valleca got a Pretty good elongated look at second base after Brandon Phillips had missed some time with that hand injury after being hit by a pitch out in San Francisco. And the good news on the tail end of that is it seems as though Phillips is swinging the bat like he did before being hit by that pitch. McGee one base hit today. Lorenzo Cain is in the on-deck circle for Milwaukee. Arthur Rhodes rings him up. 2 gone.
Well, this outing by Arthur really does come under the category of tune-up stint. And that's what you get out there to try to do, just to make sure that everything works pretty good. Your breaking ball, he goes right through the center of the order right here, though, with Prince Fielder and then Casey McGee. Nice looking slider there to put McGee away.
Starts with a strike on Cain. Arthur with a 33 appearance scoreless streak in the middle of the year, which helped vault him to the All-Star game in Anaheim. Cain was trying to poke that one to Pleasant Ridge. Just misses, does Arthur Rhodes, in his 19th major league season. The other solid thing he's done is dealing with coming in with runners on base. Has stranded 31 of 36 inherited runners, Arthur Rhodes has.
That's one of the best ways to measure a reliever, isn't it?
Yes.
Find out what you do under pressure with other runners on. I mean, some relievers come in there riding on an Exxon truck, spraying gas flames everywhere. And other guys come in and put the fire out. And that's what Arthur has done this year.
He sure has. 2-2 to Cain. And what he's done really in the last month with that foot difficulty you talked about, Chris, has been a lot of guts.
Well, that is leadership. And the fact now that the Reds going into the postseason will have not 3 but 4 left-handers in their bullpen, because Travis Wood was not named as one of the 3 starters in this first series for the Reds. It'll go Volquez, Arroyo, and then Cueto, and that leaves out Homer Bailey and Travis Wood. So Wood will go to the bullpen. And that'll give Dusty Baker 4 different left-handers to pull out of the bullpen to use in a lefty situation. It's a very interesting mix.
There's Wood and Bailey. Arthur Rhodes now today being his 849th appearance. Was tied prior to today with Roy Face for 34th on the all-time appearance list in baseball. And they're going to call Jared Burton in from the bullpen. The Reds with a 3-2 lead. The Reds ahead of Milwaukee. You'll guarantee huge savings, plus exclusive benefits and experiences available only to Reds season ticket holders. Lock in opening day, the Yankees series, and the weekend Cardinals series now. Visit Reds.com/tickets for all the details. 3-2 Redlegs ahead of the Brewers. Here in the top of the 8th, and Jared Burton has come from the bullpen.
Now, Jared Burton really thought he had a chance to make this ball club out of spring training, but quite frankly did not have a good spring. And then he was beset by some injuries and some setbacks throughout the season this year. But in his 3 appearances so far back at the big league level, all in September, all very good. Nothing but zeros.
And he'll dig in against Alcides Escobar. A swing and a miss. Miller with a throw, but getting in is Kane with the steal.
You know, it was the inability of Jared Burton to kind of get on track and stay healthy enough. They're going to send him back. What was that? They had called timeout at the plate. I think what happened there is that Escobar was asking for time just about the same time that Burton was delivering the ball to the plate. So Mike DeMuro, the home plate umpire, gave Alcides Escobar timeout. So that erases the stolen base.
Apparently he's explaining that to the Milwaukee dugout now.
No reason to get thrown out now. You're only about 30 minutes from having the season over, right?
Tells you what kind of year it's been for Ken Maka.
He was irate yesterday about the reviewed call of the home run that Jay Bruce hit. He still thinks that was not a home run.
And you know, Chris, when he came out to exchange the lineup cards and Billy Hatcher came out for the Reds, not certain, but it looked like he was still Ken Maka discussing rather heatedly with Billy Hatcher and the rest of the umpires that situation.
Well, he's already bent the ear of everybody else in a Brewer clubhouse, so he's looking for somebody new to talk to.
Some new meat. Ken played a number of years in the major leagues, part of his time with Pittsburgh as a corner infielder.
You gotta like that, though, about your manager. I mean, here's the last game of the year. Does it really matter to the Brewers whether they win this game or not? Probably not, but he wants to make it matter to them. I mean, you play every game right down to the last out, no matter where you are in the standings, and really no matter at what level you're playing, whether you're playing JV high school baseball or in the major leagues. That ought to be the way you take the field.
On the move, Kane. He'll get that. Seventh steal of the year. Well, the count is 2-2 to Escobar. Of course, his Milwaukee team a few years ago, when they got CC Sabathia, they got into the postseason basically trying to ride 2 pitchers and ran into the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah, but they got there, and that was a big thing, and I think that it just rejuvenated baseball in the town of Milwaukee. And now they still draw very well. They've got a season ticket base that is probably double that of what the Reds is. And the Reds are hoping that, you know, the in-stadium attendance, which normally lags about a year after your team starts doing well, you know, has a big jump up next year. And I would suspect that it will.
Count full to Alcides Escobar with 1 on and a couple out. And a 1-run lead for the Reds. Burton. Dials man. 3-2 Reds with the lead, middle of the 8th. is the Civil Rights game, a Saturday night game here against St. Louis. Chris Heisey started it from left field in a game-winning play, throwing out a Cardinal runner at the dish. And then Jay Bruce in September takes one away.
There was also a play that ended the ball game.
Yes, it was.
That was a great play by Jay Bruce, but that relay from left field to Orlando Cabrera back into Ramon Hernandez to end the ball game against the St. Louis Cardinals, that was exciting.
Yes, it was.
I think that was Heisey in left, Orlando Cabrera with the relay, and a good pickup by Ramon Hernandez. And just like that, ball game over. Francisco Cordero celebrating the out at the plate. I like that better than a walk-off hit, to be honest with you.
Just how you coach the youngster to do it, right? Manny Parra is taken over on the mound from Randy Wolf for Milwaukee. Lance Nix standing in for the Reds, who have a 3-2 lead. Well, Randy Wolf gave up that home run to Jay Bruce that right now is the deciding factor as Craig Counsell's taken over at short. But Randy Wolf did what he's done most of the tail end of the season here, and that was eat up innings for the Brewers. Lance Nix, one of those guys that has been dealing with some injury in the back half of the season. Wednesday made his first start since the 23rd of August in San Francisco. And that was the game in which both he and Jim Edmonds were injured and left the game at midstream. There's his season numbers as well as what he's done in the series. Lance Nix. Manny Parra in relief of Wolf.
You know, if you're Dusty Baker right now, you're thinking back on those games throughout the regular season that could have gone the other way. And that instead of getting an L, it would have been a W. And that would have given you home field advantage. And not just the game after the clinch game, the one on Tuesday night, but maybe back in April, maybe back in May or June, any of those games. And he made a point earlier that having Nix out for so long really hurt this ball club, hobbled this club, if you want to forgive the pun, because, they had to play Johnny Gomes to death. And where he got to the point where he kind of started to get into bad habits and trying to pull the ball too much, maybe trying to make up for somewhat of a tired body and fatigue out there. So if any one or two of those games had gone the other way, Reds wouldn't have to be worried about right now where they're going to sit on the runway and go to, because they would have that visiting team coming to them.
And you mentioned Johnny Gomes. As of late, with being able to be spelled and things like that with Heisey, etc., Johnny was able to finish where this week he had an 11-game hitting streak going.
Finishing a little bit stronger, no doubt. You want him obviously sharp and strong for the postseason. I think the point is that by missing Lance Nix, you wouldn't think, well, missing an extra outfielder can't be all that bad. I mean, come on. But when you have to play the same guys over and over and over and over again, you're not getting the production, and you certainly don't have the ability to change your lineup around a little bit to play matchups, and that's what most managers like to do.
One out on the fly ball by Bloomquist. Johnny Gomes back in June was on a real solid tear that had people thinking he might have been an all-star candidate.
Yep.
And it was about the time when the Reds went out to Seattle and the Mariners pitching staff cooled off that offense.
Certainly having a career year when it comes to runs batted in.
Here's a look at what Heisey has done. And Johnny Gomes, he was part of that run with Tampa Bay a few years ago. He wasn't active for their postseason roster, but he was part of that club that made that push. Manny Parra against Chris Heisey. 3-2 Reds here in the bottom of the 8th. We're keeping an eye on the Atlanta game. 7th inning, Braves an 8-4 lead over Philadelphia. By McGee, and a base hit for Heisey. So a couple on for the Reds. Of course, the game that will draw an awful lot of attention as well will be San Diego and San Francisco. That starts in about 15 minutes or so. And to try and explain how it all will play out is almost impossible to do in a short period of time. If the Giants beat the Padres, San Francisco will win the West. If the Giants win and Atlanta beats Philadelphia, the Braves will win the wild card. Yonder Alonso is now hitting in the pitcher spot.
You know, Paul, you go back and look at the season this year and you see where the Reds rebounded from what looked like was very deep adversity. You know, the first time that they were really measured or questioned, I think, was when you got into the season. It was about mid-June, and they were swept in that series that you just talked about in Seattle, when that Seattle pitching staff really just toned the Reds' offense way down. They beat them 1-0, 5-1, and 1-0 in that ball game, or in that 3-game series. But what did the Reds do after that? They went to Oakland and they won 3 in a row. So then you fast forward to right before the All-Star break, when the Reds were playing in Philadelphia. Had a big 4-game set then, and they lost 4 straight to the Philadelphia Phillies. Well, maybe a lot of people are beginning to write them off, but they came right after that, hosted the Colorado Rockies, and won 2 out of 3. And the last time, of course, is when they were swept by the St. Louis Cardinals. And then they went on for the next 20 days after the Cardinals left town. The Cardinals floundered, and the Reds picked up 8 games in the standings in the following 20 days. And I think that's why this ball club has shown everybody that, you know, when they're down, they're not down. They're just taking a little bit of a breather before they start coming back with a vengeance.
Corky Miller, the batter. After that Cardinals sweep, they swept the Marlins here in a weekend series, and then went out on that West Coast trip. You know, Phoenix, LA, San Francisco, where the West had been such a graveyard for Reds teams in the past. Swept Arizona, took 2 of 3 from LA, and got 1 of 3 in San Francisco.
Yeah, the first game they beat that Marlin team right after the Cardinals sweep was Josh Johnson.
Yes, it was.
Who at that time was one of the best pitchers in the National League and throwing the ball real well. They knocked him around and got him out of there early.
Had some tighter games in Phoenix than anybody would have expected, but managed to hang on and win some of those. I mentioned that clutch base hit by Joey Votto in Los Angeles off of Jonathan Broxton. And where it really could have gone bad in San Francisco, the Reds were able to minimize. Oh, no, you did not.
First time all year.
Swing and a miss by Corky Miller as the wave is going through the stands and in the TV booth. 3-2 Reds with the lead. Baker before anyone else. That's Reds Live. Brought to you by Kings Honda in the Kings Auto Mall. Visit KingsHondaUSA.com. Some campaign going on out in the seats. For the Reds first baseman, Joey Votto. Cincinnati a 1-run lead, and Francisco Cordero comes out in the ninth.
Well, he's trying to reach a milestone of his own. Cordero trying for save number 40 on the season. He is right now 39 of 47.
Certainly for the Reds to have some success in the postseason, Francisco Cordero is a guy they need to have on the beam as he'll start it off against George Kataris. There have been a lot of guys who have gotten work out of that bullpen today. Some of it prompted because Aaron Harang only went 2+ innings. Dusty Baker has used Logan Ondrusek, Matt Maloney, Aroldis Chapman, Arthur Rhodes, Jared Burton, and now Cordero. Next chasing. 1 out.
Nice sign right there by Lance Nix, being able to get a good jump, catch the ball that's slicing away from him off the bat of a left-hander. His foot, his right foot, has been the problem foot, and he doesn't show any signs of slow down there.
Which segues us into right to the mention that the Reds are second in the National League with a .988 fielding percentage. That's been a big part of why this team has had success. Craig Counsell.
Cordero trying to get to 40 saves for the third time in his career. He's got 289 of them overall. He had 49 saves in 2004 as a member of the Texas Rangers, and he reached 44 saves in 2007 in his last year with the Brewers. Of course, the Reds signed him in 2008 to a 4-year deal. He has had 39 saves last year, and he's sitting at 39 right now.
Counsell with a ball that Valleca has. 2 down. And a chance for the fans to get on their feet and try and root the Reds home with a final out of the regular season and on into the postseason. Gomez. And he reaches for the base hit. So the inning continues for Corey Hart, who when last right around home plate was being thrown out when trying to steal home. Getting a little loud, isn't it? Corey Hart today, a 2-run double in the third.
Dangerous hitter right here. Plenty of power to put the Brewers up with one swing of the bat if you get a ball in his hot zone. 31 home runs already for Corey Hart.
So 2 hits on the day for the Brewer right fielder.
You know, big crowd here today, Paul. This is really nice to see. Normally, what we've seen over the last 15 years, the Reds are already have their cars packed, ready to go home. This crowd on their feet, one more out, and the postseason begins.
Yes. The Reds to open on the road. They would be back home for a 3rd game of the postseason, 3rd and 4th. Who, when, and where? That were a couple of strikes from getting closer to figuring that out. 8-4 Atlanta ahead of Philadelphia in the 7th. Yet to start Giants and Padres. 0-1 pitch. Strike 2. should hard reach Joe Englert due to hit next. No luck on the appeal, so it'll be 1-2 on Corey Hart. With Gomez down at second. Easy to think this kind of crowd support will be here for the postseason, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Now this town will be rocking and rolling all week long. Starting with the pep rally tomorrow.
Starting with the next strike. Like right here.
There it is.
3-2. Reds beat Milwaukee. Headed to the postseason with 2 wins in a row and feeling very good about themselves.
Well, this ball club has not felt so good about playing the 162nd game of the year for a long, long time. Finally finished the regular season. They call it a championship season for a reason. Because if you win it in your division, you go on to the postseason. A satisfying year so far for Dusty Baker. But he knows he and his team has some work to do. And a great, great year for Cincinnati Reds and Reds fans. Congratulations to each and every one of them.
How about this? 91 wins. Matches 1990.
Well, there have been, comparisons drawn between this team of 2010 and 1990 all year long. They celebrated the 1990 team during the middle of the year when they brought a lot of the guys back to talk about it and how great it was during that wire-to-wire season. Just maybe this team can repeat.
We can dream. 3-2 Reds over Milwaukee.